In a world where reason tries to define every mystery, Ibn Arabi reminds us that the greatest power lies not in logic, but in imagination. To him, imagination is not illusion. It is creation itself. It is the divine mirror through which the infinite reveals itself in countless forms. Through imagination, we see beyond appearances, into the hidden unity of all existence. For Ibn Arabi, to imagine is to witness God in every reflection. The imagination for Ibn Arabi is far more than a simple human faculty of fantasy or invention. It is a divine bridge that connects two worlds, the visible and the invisible. He calls this bridge al-Khayal, and it stands at the center of his metaphysical vision. To understand this concept, one must realize that reality for Ibn Arabi is layered. On one side lies the absolute spiritual realm of pure being, the unseen, infinite essence of God. On the other side lies the physical, material world, the realm of forms, appearances, and multiplicity. Between these two realms, imagination serves as an intermediary dimension, where spiritual realities take visible form and physical things reveal their inner divine meaning. This imaginal world, known as al-Mithal, is not unreal. It possesses its own kind of existence, a subtle reality that blends both the spiritual and the sensory. In dreams, visions, and spiritual experiences, human beings access this imaginal world. When a prophet receives revelation, what he perceives is not the abstract essence of truth, but its image within the realm of imagination. In this sense, imagination becomes the language of divine communication, the way through which the infinite translates itself into symbols, shapes, and experiences that the finite mind can grasp. For Ibn Arabi, every form, every event in life is a symbolic appearance of a deeper, invisible truth. The entire cosmos becomes an imaginal manifestation of God's creative command, be. The universe itself is the imagination of the divine, projected from non-existence into existence, yet still dependent upon the one who imagines it. Because of this, imagination is sacred. It is not deception or fantasy, but the dynamic field where the spiritual assumes form. Human imagination mirrors divine creativity. When a person envisions, dreams, or contemplates, they echo the divine act of creation. This is why Ibn Arabi often describes imagination as both a mirror and a bridge. It reflects divine realities into the human world, while also allowing the human soul to ascend toward higher knowledge. The purified heart, when free from the distortions of ego and illusion, becomes a polished mirror that reflects these truths accurately. In this mirror, imagination does not distort, it reveals. The bridge of imagination also transforms perception. Ordinary perception divides the world into opposites, visible and invisible, matter and spirit, human and divine. But through imagination, these opposites are reconciled. It allows the mystic to see that form and meaning are one, that what is seen is merely the outer face of what is unseen. Imagination turns perception into insight. It shows the unity behind diversity. When one looks at a mountain, a river, or a human face, the imagination reveals them not merely as physical things, but as signs pointing to the eternal. This creative vision is the foundation of Ibn Arabi's understanding of reality as continuous revelation. God is constantly manifesting himself in the world of imagination. Creation is the ongoing act of divine self-disclosure. Each moment, existence renews itself through new forms, new reflections of the infinite. The role of the mystic, therefore, is to perceive these reflections consciously, to live within imagination without mistaking it for illusion. Imagination must be disciplined by spiritual knowledge, purified by love, and guided by divine remembrance. When that happens, the individual no longer sees separation between worlds, but experiences them as one continuous presence. Thus, imagination, as the bridge between the seen and unseen, is not a mere human capacity. It is the cosmic medium of revelation and transformation. It allows divine truth to descend into images and human souls to ascend toward divine meaning. It is the thread that binds the visible world to its invisible source, the mirror in which God contemplates his own beauty through the eyes of his creation. For Ibn Arabi, the creative power of the human mind is not something limited to personal imagination or artistic invention. It is a reflection of the divine act of creation itself. In his metaphysical vision, everything in existence is a manifestation of God's eternal creativity, and human beings, made in the image of the divine, share a portion of that power. The mind, and particularly the imaginative faculty, becomes the stage where divine creativity continues to unfold. This power is not about producing illusions, but about perceiving and participating in the ongoing creation of reality. Ibn Arabi's philosophy suggests that the entire universe is God's imagination, and humans, by virtue of their consciousness, are capable of joining in that act of imagining, shaping their inner and outer worlds according to the divine pattern. To understand this, one must recognize that for Ibn Arabi, the divine is both the creator and the creation. The world is not separate from God, but is a continuous expression of his being. Just as an artist's painting is a reflection of his inner vision, the universe is the visible form of the divine imagination. When a human being imagines, dreams, or conceives an idea, that process mirrors the same creative principle that brought existence out of non-existence. Thus, every act of genuine imagination is a microcosmic echo of the divine kun, the command be, through which God calls things into being. The human mind's creative power lies in its ability to transform potential into form, to turn unseen ideas into visible realities. When guided by spiritual awareness, this creative act becomes a form of worship, a conscious imitation of the Creator. Ibn Arabi believed that the mind's creativity could either reflect divine truth or become clouded by ego and desire. When imagination serves the self alone, it becomes illusion. When it serves the divine, it becomes revelation. The mystic learns to refine his imagination until it no longer creates from personal fantasy, but from divine inspiration. In this state, creativity becomes a sacred act of participation in the unfolding of existence. This power of the mind also extends to perception itself. The way a person sees the world determines the reality they experience. Ibn Arabi often emphasized that the world is like a mirror. It reflects back the images held within the human soul. If the mind is filled with confusion, fear, and attachment, the world appears fragmented and chaotic. But if the mind is illuminated with divine light, it perceives unity, beauty, and meaning in everything. In this sense, the creative power of the mind shapes not only what we make, but what we see. Each human being becomes a co-creator of their own reality through the images and beliefs they hold within. Dreams and visions hold a special place in this process, as they reveal how imagination can manifest entire worlds that feel real and alive. Ibn Arabi saw such experiences as proof that creation itself is an imaginal act. Just as a dreamer can bring forth an entire landscape from nothing, God brings forth the universe from non-existence. The human capacity to dream or imagine is therefore not an illusion, but a reflection of divine creativity operating through the mind. When a mystic perceives a vision in the heart, that vision is not merely psychological, it is a true event in the imaginal realm, a dimension that exists between spirit and matter. Through this understanding, the human mind is elevated from a tool of reasoning to a vessel of creation. It becomes the space where divine names and attributes are reflected and given form. The intellect alone cannot grasp this mystery, for it belongs to the realm of experience and inner vision. The creative imagination, disciplined by love and spiritual knowledge, turns thought into manifestation, making the unseen visible. Ibn Arabi calls humanity the perfect mirror, because within the human being, the divine sees himself reflected in conscious awareness. The creative power of the mind, therefore, is not separate from God's own creativity. It is the divine act continuing through human existence, allowing each soul to participate in the eternal unfolding of being. The concept of the world of images, or al-Mithal, stands at the heart of Ibn Arabi's vision of reality. It is not merely a poetic idea or a symbolic metaphor. For him, it is a real and distinct realm of existence, positioned between the purely spiritual world and the physical material world. This imaginal world is the place where spiritual realities take on form, and material realities reveal their inner meaning. It is a world that can be accessed through imagination, vision, and dreams, but it is not imaginary in the sense of being unreal. Ibn Arabi describes it as an objective domain with its own laws and order, bridging what is visible and invisible. It is through this world that divine truths are manifested to the prophets, mystics and saints in images that can be seen, felt, and understood by the human mind. In this realm, there is no contradiction between spirit and form. The spiritual can appear as a visible image, and the visible can transform into a symbol of the unseen. Everything that exists in the physical world has an imaginal counterpart in al-Mithal. It is the space of correspondence, where the higher realities of the divine names descend into forms and where human understanding ascends toward divine meaning. Dreams and visions for Ibn Arabi occur in this world. When a person dreams, they do not simply invent images in their head. Their consciousness actually travels to the imaginal realm and witnesses symbolic realities that express spiritual truths in forms the mind can recognize. The imaginal world is the medium of revelation. When prophets receive messages from the divine, these messages are clothed in imaginal forms: a voice, an angel, a light, or a symbol. These are not products of fantasy but real experiences in al-Mithal, where divine meaning becomes perceivable. Ibn Arabi insists that this world has objective reality even though it cannot be touched or measured by the senses. It exists with its own type of substance, neither purely material nor purely spiritual. The things seen there are not abstract concepts but living realities with form and presence. In this way, the imaginal world allows communication between the unseen world of spirits and the seen world of bodies. For the mystic, learning to perceive the imaginal world consciously is a major step in spiritual development. It requires purifying the imagination so that it becomes a truthful mirror of the divine rather than a projector of personal illusions. When the heart becomes pure, it can reflect the images of al-Mithal with clarity, allowing the mystic to see the inner meaning behind appearances. In such states, a person may perceive spiritual beings, archetypal symbols, or divine names appearing in luminous forms. Ibn Arabi teaches that these experiences are not hallucinations. They are encounters with the true world of forms that underlies and sustains physical reality. The imaginal world also explains how resurrection, divine judgment, and other spiritual events can be both real and symbolic. After death, according to Ibn Arabi, the soul enters al-Mithal, where it experiences the realities of its actions and intentions in imaginal form. Heaven and hell are experienced not as physical places, but as states of being reflected through the imaginal body. Thus, al-Mithal is not only the realm of dreams and visions, but also the realm through which the soul journeys after life. A place of truth where inner realities are revealed through form. Through this doctrine, Ibn Arabi unites philosophy, mysticism, and revelation. The world of images becomes the key to understanding how divine knowledge enters human consciousness. It shows that reality is layered, that what we call physical life is only the lowest expression of a vast continuum of being. The imaginal world stands between matter and spirit as the living bridge through which creation flows. It is there that God's self-disclosure becomes visible, and where human imagination, purified of illusion, can witness the unfolding beauty of the divine in form. For Ibn Arabi, imagination is not merely a faculty for creating images or fantasies. It is a sacred path that leads the seeker toward divine knowledge. In his metaphysical vision, true knowledge of God cannot be attained through reason or intellectual analysis alone, for the intellect is bound by dualities, definitions, and limitations. Divine reality transcends all categories and escapes the grasp of rational thought. It is through the purified imagination that one begins to perceive the inner meanings hidden behind appearances. Imagination becomes the organ of spiritual vision, the bridge that allows the human soul to see the unseen and to recognize the presence of the divine within all forms of existence. Ibn Arabi teaches that God reveals himself continuously in the world through signs, symbols, and forms. Each thing in existence is a theophany, a manifestation of one of the divine names. To perceive this truth requires a special kind of seeing, not the seeing of the physical eye, but the vision of the heart. The heart, when purified of worldly distractions and egoic desires, becomes a mirror capable of reflecting divine realities. Imagination is the light that makes these reflections visible. It translates the invisible into symbols that can be experienced. The one who trains and refines this inner vision begins to see the world as a book of divine signs, where every image, event, and encounter reveals something of God's infinite nature. This form of knowledge is called marifa, or gnosis. It is not learned from books or logical proofs, but awakened through inner realization. When imagination functions under the guidance of divine inspiration, it becomes a means of unveiling rather than illusion. It shows the mystic how every form conceals a meaning, and how every meaning seeks a form through which to express itself. The role of imagination is to interpret this ongoing dialogue between form and meaning. The world becomes a vast mirror in which the hidden essence of the divine gazes upon itself. The mystic, through imaginative perception, witnesses this reflection and understands that there is no separation between creator and creation. Only the endless play of appearance and essence. Dreams and visions are among the purest expressions of this process. In them, divine truths descend into imaginal forms that the soul can understand. When a prophet or a saint receives a vision, it comes clothed in symbols, an angel, a light, a voice, because pure truth cannot be grasped without form. The imagination translates it into something perceivable. Ibn Arabi explains that these experiences are not mere figments of the mind, but real encounters with the imaginal world, the intermediate realm where divine meanings take on shape. Through disciplined contemplation, one learns to interpret these symbols, discovering in them guidance and insight that reason could never provide. The path to divine knowledge through imagination is also a path of transformation. As the seeker learns to see with the inner eye, perception itself is transfigured. The world no longer appears as a collection of separate objects, but as a living expression of divine unity. Every sound, color, and form becomes a reminder of the one who manifests through them all. Imagination thus becomes a form of worship, a continual witnessing of God's presence in the details of existence. Through it, knowledge is no longer abstract or theoretical. It becomes experiential and immediate. Yet this power must be purified. The imagination of an unrefined heart can deceive, projecting personal desires and illusions instead of divine truth. Ibn Arabi warns that only through spiritual discipline, remembrance of God, and the guidance of love can imagination serve as a true instrument of knowledge. When it is purified of ego, it becomes luminous, revealing meanings that intellect alone could never reach. In that state, imagination no longer belongs to the individual. It becomes a window through which the divine sees itself. To know through imagination is to participate in divine vision. To see the world not as a separate reality but as the endless unfolding of the one being who imagines all things into existence. For Ibn Arabi, the heart occupies a central position in the human being. It is not merely an emotional organ but the spiritual center where divine knowledge, love, and imagination meet. In his mystical framework, the heart is the mirror of existence, capable of reflecting both the realities of the physical world and the luminous truths of the spiritual world. It is within the heart that the power of imagination truly resides and operates. The imagination gives the heart its ability to perceive the infinite in the finite, to recognize the unseen within the seen. The heart, when purified and illuminated, becomes the vessel through which divine realities are witnessed and understood. It is the meeting point between heaven and earth, where the human being encounters the divine presence within themselves. Ibn Arabi often speaks of the heart as being constantly in motion. It is never fixed, for it mirrors the divine reality, which is itself in continuous self-disclosure. The Arabic word for heart, qalb, comes from a root that means to turn or to transform, indicating its ever-changing nature. Because of this, the heart has the capacity to receive and reflect endless forms of divine manifestation. The divine names, attributes, and qualities are revealed within the heart according to its purity and receptivity. When the heart is clouded by ego, attachment, and distraction, its mirror becomes dull and distorted, unable to reflect divine light clearly. But when it is polished through remembrance, dhikr, love, and contemplation, it becomes a clear surface upon which the images of divine truth appear with brilliance and precision. Imagination plays an essential role in this process. It acts as the medium through which the heart perceives meanings and forms. The purified heart, guided by imagination, can see beyond the surface of things to their inner reality. This is not imagination as fantasy, but imagination as revelation. Through it, the heart learns to interpret the symbols of creation. Every object, every sound, and every experience becomes a message from the divine, carrying within it a trace of eternal meaning. Ibn Arabi describes this state as one where the heart becomes the eye of God, seeing creation as God sees it, not as separate, but as manifestations of a single infinite reality. In this understanding, the heart is not limited by the boundaries of intellect. The intellect divides and categorizes. The heart unites and reconciles. Through imagination, the heart harmonizes opposites, light and darkness, being and non-being, human and divine. It perceives the unity that underlies all multiplicity. This is why Ibn Arabi insists that true knowledge does not reside in the mind alone, but in the heart illuminated by imagination. The intellect may understand concepts about God, but the heart, through imaginal perception, experiences God directly. The imagination opens the heart's inner eye, allowing it to witness divine beauty in the fabric of the world. When the heart becomes the seat of imagination, it also becomes the center of creation. Every image perceived and every meaning experienced through the heart is part of God's continuous act of self-disclosure. The heart in this sense is a microcosm of the universe. It reflects the same creative principle that animates the cosmos. Ibn Arabi teaches that the heart of the perfect human being, al-Insan al-Kamil, encompasses all levels of existence, spirit, imagination, and matter. Such a heart becomes a living mirror of the divine, where every form in creation is recognized as a reflection of the One. This is why the spiritual path, for Ibn Arabi, is a journey toward the purification and expansion of the heart. The goal is not to escape the world, but to perceive it through the heart's imagination, where the divine and the human meet. When the heart is awakened, it no longer sees through the eyes of separation. It perceives through the eye of unity. The imagination transforms ordinary vision into sacred vision, allowing the heart to witness God in every reflection. In this state, the heart becomes not only the seat of imagination, but also the throne of divine presence, where the infinite gazes upon itself through the mirror of the human soul. For Ibn Arabi, imagination is the key through which the mystery of the unity of being, or wahdat al-wujud, is revealed. This principle asserts that all existence is one, that everything in the universe is a manifestation of the single, infinite reality of God. The multiplicity we perceive in the world is not a contradiction of unity, but its expression through countless forms. Imagination is the power that allows these forms to appear while still being rooted in the same essence. It is the divine act of self-disclosure, in which the hidden becomes visible without ceasing to be what it truly is. Through imagination, God contemplates himself in infinite reflections, and the world becomes the theater of that eternal vision. In this sense, imagination is not separate from being, but its mode of appearance. The cosmos is the divine imagination unfolding itself, an endless play of forms arising within the ocean of the One. Ibn Arabi compares creation to the reflection of images in a mirror. The forms appear distinct, yet they have no existence apart from the mirror itself. The mirror represents divine being, and the reflections are the creatures. When the mystic understands this, he realizes that everything that exists is both real and unreal. Real because it manifests the divine presence, unreal because it has no independent existence of its own. This paradox is the essence of imagination. It reveals without separating, it manifests without dividing. The human being occupies a unique place in this process. Created in the image of God, the human soul possesses imagination as a reflection of divine creativity. Just as God imagines the universe into being, the human being imagines meaning into form. Through this faculty, one participates in the ongoing revelation of unity. The mystic's task is to see the world not as fragmented objects, but as faces of a single reality. Every form, every moment, is a sign of God's presence, a letter in the endless book of being. When imagination is purified of illusion, it becomes the instrument through which this unity is witnessed directly. The heart, guided by imagination, perceives the divine essence shining through all appearances. The world, then, is neither purely material nor purely spiritual. It is imaginal, existing between the two. This imaginal nature allows divine unity to express itself through diversity. Just as colors arise from the light that passes through different lenses, the forms of creation arise from divine light filtered through the mirrors of possibility. Imagination mediates this process, translating the infinite into the finite. The one who perceives through the eye of imagination sees that every creature is a divine name made visible, and that every event is a new manifestation of the eternal act of creation. In this vision, there is no absolute separation between creator and creation, only the flowing movement of being revealing itself. The realization of wahdat al-wujud through imagination transforms perception completely. The mystic no longer looks at the world as something external, but as a reflection of the divine within. Seeing becomes a form of remembrance, for every image leads back to its source. To witness the world imaginally is to see God manifesting through form and to understand that nothing exists outside that manifestation. The self, too, is part of this reflection. When the mystic looks within, he finds not an isolated individual, but the presence of the one who sees through him. This vision does not dissolve the world into abstraction, but fills it with divine meaning. Every encounter, every sound, and every movement becomes sacred, for all are expressions of the same unity. Imagination allows the finite to reveal the infinite without breaking the connection between them. It transforms existence into a mirror of divine self-recognition, where the Creator contemplates his own beauty in the forms of creation. For Ibn Arabi, this is the secret of life itself. Imagination sustains the bridge between unity and multiplicity, allowing the one to appear as many and the many to return to the one. In the vision of Ibn Arabi, imagination is not an escape from reality, but the very essence of it. It is through imagination that the unseen becomes visible, that the divine communicates with creation, and that the human heart discovers its true nature. Every form, every moment, every breath is a reflection of the one being manifesting itself in infinite ways. The power of imagination is, therefore, the power to see beyond separation, to perceive unity behind diversity and meaning within every image of existence. When the heart becomes pure, imagination transforms into a sacred mirror, revealing that the world around us is not empty or accidental, but filled with divine presence. Through this vision, life itself becomes a revelation, and every experience becomes a conversation between the Creator and the created. Ibn Arabi teaches us that to imagine is not to dream falsely, but to awaken, to witness the divine unfolding within and around us. True imagination is the eye of the soul that recognizes God in all things and all things in God. In that realization lies the deepest wisdom, that existence itself is the imagination of the infinite, and we are the living reflections through which the infinite beholds its own beauty.